Welcome back. This is Dr. Hadley. This is my series on Microsoft 365 Excel, the online version. We are going to start a new unit. This is going to be formulas and basic math. So we're going to be doing a lot in this unit, but we're going to just start off with some simple math things first. And formulas. And that's what makes Excel super powerful, because it can handle formulas. It's basically a big calculator. How we get a formula in a cell is basically we get to the cell and we type in equals. And now this starts a formula for us. I mean, there's lots of other ways to get into the, start building a formula, but this is really the basic way. Okay. But I can use this to do super simple calculations, like 4 times 8. Okay. Obviously, you can see there is no, I could do x, but that's not actually going to multiply. It's the asterisk, which is on the 10 key, but it's also Shift 8 to get multiplication. So if I want to do that, I should get 32. And the other operations are in there too. So equals 4 minus 2 equals 3 plus 7. I didn't put equals. So if I don't put equals, it's just going to keep it as like text or whatever. So equals, as soon as I do equals though, it does it as it's supposed to. Okay. There's also division, equals 9 divided by 3. Also, I can have parentheses, parentheticals. I can have exponents. And there's also named functions like natural log and sine and cosine and things of that sort. But let's just do the basic ones that you would see on a basic calculator. Equals 2 to the 4, and that's going to give me 16. Okay. Now you can see here, there's no real exponent button or feature to make it superscripted. So it's the caret, which is Shift 6. So Shift 6 gives you the caret, which is an exponent, and now I can get exponents into my Excel sheet. Okay. I can also have parentheticals, so I can say equals 2 times parentheses 1 plus 9 divided by 5 to the square. Okay. This is going to give me 0.8, I believe. There you go. And so it automatically handles order of operations. So it's good to understand order of operations when setting up your formulas, but it's going to do it automatically. So it's going to do these exponents first before it divides this 5. So it's not going to divide by 5 and then square the whole thing. It's going to square the 5 and then divide the whole thing by 25. But maybe I want it more than just a basic calculator. Probably do. Probably want, okay, I have all this data, I want to process that data. So maybe we have, like our unit 1 table. So we have a cost, we have a price, we have tax, we have gross, and then net, and maybe let's put way over here customer, or let's do item. Okay, so and let's add some things. So apples, oranges, bananas, and onions. And then for cost, we're just going to give them again some random numbers. 5, 5.5, 4.2, and 1.1. Okay. And let's make all of these dollars. So right click, format cells, number, and again we went over this in the previous unit. So we're going to make all these currencies, and we're going to give them 2 decimal places. All right, there we go. So in terms of, and so we need the price too. So that's the, how much it cost me. So maybe there is a strict markup for all of these things. So maybe the markup is 50% bigger. Okay, so how that formula works is, 1.5, that's going to make it 50% bigger if I multiply the 5. Now I could do 1.5 times 5, 1.5 times 5.5, and so on and so forth. But that's a big chore. So instead, I'm going to just use a cell reference. So if I click on the cell that I want to multiply 1.5 by, that's going to be my formula. And if I click enter, it does that for me. Now, another way I can do that is, 1.5 times, and I can use my arrow keys. So if I use my arrow key, then it responds and I get the same kind of thing. But that would be a pain to do if I had like 50 items. So what do? Well, let's add one more item here just for argument's sake. So potatoes. And let's say that those are 55 cents. Okay. I can do what's called autofill. Okay. So if you click on the cell, you're going to see this little square in the corner. And when I put my cursor over that, I'm going to get these crosshairs. Okay. And if I drag, it's going to autofill. Okay. It's going to read whatever this is and apply the same pattern to each cell. So in this case, the pattern is multiply 1.5 times the cell to the left. I'm like, what did you just do? How did you get it to highlight? If I click on the cell and I click in the formula bar, this is the formula bar, then it highlights which cells are involved in this step. So by doing so, okay, I know it's E4, and you can see it's color coded, and of course the answer or the output is in this column. But it's always going to be 1.5 times the cell to the left. Okay, if we did that horizontally, you would get the same, same kind of thing. 1.5 times whatever cell is to the left. So if I look at this one, it's 1.5 to whatever it is to its immediate left. Not the cost, but the one to the immediate left. Now that's not appropriate. Okay, that's not correct. So there's our markup. Okay. And maybe our tax is based on that. That would also be a multiplication. So let's just give that 0.089 times this guy, and then now the gross is going to be the price plus the tax. I don't think technically you're supposed to account for the tax in this case, but we are just for the funsies. Okay, adds those together. I guess we could have to, but of course net is going to be the gross minus the cost. And again, I can click on those cells, or I can use arrow keys. For me, the arrow keys is faster, but that's personal preference. But in this case, it's always going to be the one to the left, and then the cell that is four cells to the left. Okay. And again, I can auto complete this, and it works for every single formula. Pretty nice. Okay. Now let's say though I wanted this tax. Okay, I put in this 0.089. Well, what if the state passes a legislature and okay, groceries are now only 0.054. Okay, they're only 5.4%. Okay. I can have a cell that just has the tax. So in this case, 5.4%. And it's going to do the math correctly on this. It is going to multiply. If I use this, it's going to treat this as 0.054. It's just formatted as percent. But if I change this 0.089 to this cell, okay, that's going to do it correctly. But if I autofill down any, so let's just autofill 2 cells, it's again 4 cells to the right. Okay, but so I want it to stay just L2. I want it always to be L2. So what I want to do is something called absolute cell referencing. So this is relative cell referencing. It's relative to where the formula is. Absolute makes it absolute. It will not change no matter what pattern you give it. So to give it absolute reference, to make it always L2, you're going to press either Command T, I believe, on a Mac, but I'm not a Mac user anymore, or F4 if on a PC. And as soon as you do that, it's going to give it dollar signs. And even, you can see it even has this pop-up window that says, okay, 5.4%. It knows exactly what its value is. But those dollar signs are going to say, no matter what pattern you give me, keep those the same. So if I autofill these, and I'm only going to do the first 4 so that we can keep some legacy items so you can kind of see how things work. No matter how far I drag down, it has kept it at L2. So that's absolute cell referencing. Let's do an application of that really quick. Let's make a multiplication table, something we're all familiar with. Now, I'm going to leave this one be. I'm going to do this in a new sheet. I think we've talked about this before, but in case I didn't, I can go down here, plus new sheet. So this is just different work areas within the same file. And maybe I want to rename this, so I can right-click, rename, and I'm going to call it multi-table for my multiplication table. Okay. So I have 1, 2, okay. And that pattern recognition works for even non-formulas. So 1, 2, I can autofill this out to 10. I don't want these ones. Okay. And then I can do the same thing here, 1, 2. Now if I just do 1, sometimes this works, sometimes, but yeah. So computers are stupid. That's something I always say. Computers are stupid. You're a human, you are smart, so you have to teach the computer what to do and how to do it. So by default, it's just going to copy it. But I want it to recognize the pattern of, okay, increase the previous cell by 1. So I highlight 2. Now it has a pattern to recognize. So from this pattern, now I can autofill and get what I need. Okay. So multiplication table, rows times columns, right? So equals this column times this row. I get 1, just like I should. Okay. Let's autofill this down. Oof, that's not quite right, right? So what's going on? Well, because it's relative cell referencing, it's always doing the one above and the one to the left. Okay. Now the problem here is, yes, I can make, click on this, get F4, and that's going to work. That's going to do what it's supposed to do. But if I autofill it to the right, it's always going to be B1. I want it to change. I want it to recognize the pattern of like, okay, well, do it based on the column it's in. Okay. So if we go back to this original one, I click on B1, and I click on F4 again. One of the dollar signs disappears. So those dollar signs basically say, keep this thing constant. So in this case, the dollar sign is in front of the 1, so it's always going to keep the 1 constant. It will change the B based on how I move things, but it's always going to keep it 1. Okay. I'm going to want to do a similar thing to A2. So let's give it F4, F4, and then F4 one more time. This is always going to keep it A. No matter what, no matter what pattern I do, it's always going to be A. However, if I change the row number, it's going to change with it. So if we do enter, and then we autofill down, just like we did before, we're okay. And then let's finish out our table. Okay, perfect, right? So let's just click a cell here randomly. Now, if you're like, did I do this right? Did I put the dollar sign in the right spot? And again, you can type the dollar sign, but F4 is obviously the easiest way to do this. You can always just click a random cell that's within the pattern, and yep, it is multiplying this one by this one. It is doing it the way I asked it to do it. Okay, pretty nice. So there's patterns with the formulas, there's patterns with numbers. Okay, it assumes like, okay, this is always increasing, but maybe I want it to be 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2. Okay. So 1 2 1 2, and this can work for text too. But I highlight the pattern, and then I autofill to continue that pattern. Oh, this didn't like it either. Because again, Excel is stupid. All right, so let's just do words. Let's say rock, paper, scissors, and I want to, copy that pattern. So highlight those three. Rock, paper, scissors, rock, paper, scissors, rock, paper, scissors. And it's going to just see that pattern and keep duplicating. The next thing, now that we have seen autofilling, we've seen relative cell referencing, we've seen absolute cell referencing, we've seen autofilling with patterns in different contexts. You can repeat this pattern, or okay, it's increasing, because if I do something like Monday and I autofill that, it's not going to do Monday, Monday, Monday. It's going to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, because that's probably a very common thing to do with this. The last thing I can do, or like I said, the next thing I can do is I can define. So right now we are doing an absolute reference on this, okay? But I can define, hey, this is the tax. Okay? This cell is always going to be the tax, and whether I move it. So right now, if I move it, okay, none of these change because the logic changes with it, and it says, that's that one. The logic changes with it. It's like, oh, okay, well, my L2 moved, so now I'm going to be N3. But maybe you don't remember where you put tax. Maybe you put it on a completely different worksheet. Okay? So let's do that. Let's put tax on this other worksheet. Tax 0.054, or rather 5.2%. Okay. And then go back to my sheet. There are two things I can do. Now here, again, I can still do, click on this and click on this one, and it can reference across sheets too, which is pretty nice. And F4, and I can. Okay. The other thing I can do is I can define this cell as tax. So if I go here and then over here, I can give it a name of tax. So from that, so it says tax has been created. It's going to be in multi-table N2 N2. So whenever I type in the word tax, so I can have, well, let's do this one. So I got my F3, but I'm going to be tax times that. Tax. Tax times F3. Autofill that guy. And it works just right. And that way, no matter what, this is going to be the tax. And I can keep that constant, and I only have to remember where it's at. I just have to remember, oh yeah, there's a cell called tax. Maybe you have a worksheet and there's lots of these, and you're like, oh, what did I call that again? Okay. Go to formulas up here and name manager. So name manager is going to keep track of all of my named cells. So if I had one that was also interest, and that was 12%, we called it interest. Okay, it gets added to the list, and I can be way over here in multi-table, and I can go, oh, where was interest again? It takes me right to it, and I can change the name. I can, so this lets me change the name, what cell. I can put a comment like, hey, this is what interest is, or whatever. And I can also select this one or delete it from the the ellipsis. Okay, let's do one last thing. So, I mean, we could do all sorts of formulas like percent difference or percentage of growth towards it towards a goal. Let's do let's do a running total. Okay, so 1, 5, 9, 4, 3, 2.2, 6.7. And also so this is, sales. Okay. And let's over here have a goal. Okay. And I want that to be, let's say 252. Okay. So there are two ways I can do a running total. Actually, let's move this a little bit. So we're going to select these, get the hand, that lets me move it around. So when I go to do running total, let's have this running total. I want it to be, okay, basically keep summing it up, but only add in this one extra thing. So equals. Now this first one, I'm just going to have this one. But on the next one, I'm going to have, okay, the previous total plus whatever I'm adding. Okay. And that, I autofill it, it's going to give me my running total. Okay. And if I wanted something like, okay, progress towards, progress, okay, equals this guy divided by my goal. Now I don't want goal to change, so I'm going to press F4 so that it's always that. Now, and that's money. I don't want it to be money. I want it to be percentage. So let's go back here and click on percentage. There we go. That's perfect. And then we're going to autofill that guy. And now we have our running total. So here I'm only 0.4%. By the end, I'm at least 13.06%. And that is all we have for this lesson. I hope you learned something. I hope you enjoyed this video. Keep watching, subscribe, and then I will see you on the next lesson. Have a good day.